The Forum, exclusively on Facebook Live, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. until 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Call in or text live 414-395-0484. Thought-provoking talk radio covering all topics from local to national and everything in between. It may not be what you expect to hear, but we will definitely give you what you need to know. That's The Forum, exclusively on Facebook Live, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. until 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Podcasts available on our website, theforum2.com. Check us out. Good morning. Welcome to the program. Today is Tuesday, May 26th, 2020. A few things I'd like to talk about today. At some point, I'm going to get to Donald Trump threatening to pull the Republican National Convention from Charlotte because Donald Trump wants the arena to be at full capacity. And I had said some time ago that Donald Trump needs large crowds to help solidify his re-election campaign. And if he does not get those large crowds, not only is that going to be a blow to his ego, but it may hurt his chances of rallying support when he's going to need it the most. Donald Trump is also losing a lot of support because of the defiance, it seems, based on partisanship. Republicans in red states pretend like the coronavirus doesn't exist. So we're going to get to that as well. As the United States nears 100,000 coronavirus deaths, we're somewhere hovering around 99,000, if those counts are accurate. So we'll get to that. But before we get into the political news of the day, and of course your comments are welcome. Also, guys, I'm only able to read comments. Good morning, Kimberly. Good morning, AJ. No unemployment, no 1,200. Who knows when the Social Security and unemployment offices will open? Good point. Jesse Greenlay. My mentor, the man who taught me how to be a professional. Good morning, Jesse. Glad to hear you back. Dropping knowledge. Thank you, sir. The partisanship of people's interpretation of the coronavirus is there's no way to explain it. And so I'm going to make public my position on this because we can't beat the number of individuals that want to just live life. You think we don't understand? We've been cooped up in the house we're getting close to like 11 weeks. And it's summertime. And summertime in Wisconsin is not like summertime anywhere else. If you don't believe me, look at the pictures from Lake Geneva, a very popular tourist resort area in Wisconsin where a lot of Illinois travelers come. People are ready to experience life. And I think that the trauma of having to stay at home and not being able to be with your friends and your family and for an entire summer to go by without us experiencing all of it is very traumatic for some people, even though it shouldn't be that serious. So I'm going to, at some point, make what might be a controversial statement or my position on what we do with individuals. We can't tell them to stay home. They're not going to stay home. In fact, if you tell them to stay home because it's for their own good and for everyone's safety, they're going to be even more defiant. So even telling them this is for your own good This is in your best interest. It's almost like when someone tells you to vote in your best interest, but they believe they have your best interests in mind. They get offended when we tell them, no, we're looking out for your health and safety and also the health and safety of our friends and our family by you staying home. And so that causes even more rebellion. You guys remember Dr. Death, Jack Kevorkian, the assisted suicide doctor? Remember him? He was very controversial. But at the time, this is probably late 80s, early 90s, when Dr. Kevorkian was administering suicide, and there were some states that passed assisted suicide laws. You guys remember that? I was in favor of that. If someone is terminally ill, now keeping in mind we have more medical technology now than we did in the 80s and the 90s, but if someone had literally no hope and they were maxed out on pain medication, they did not have a quality of life, and they were dying, but dying slowly, if somebody made the conscious decision and their family was there and their family agreed, and if they wanted to end their life on their terms because they couldn't bear the pain and the suffering anymore, I was all for that. That is an incredible liberty that we have. Now, I believe it's been made illegal, but we were different back in the 80s and the 90s, I suppose. What people are doing right now, especially those that are saying, I'm not afraid, all of you you sheeple who are afraid of corona, stop living in fear, stop living in fear. Those are the people I really feel sorry for, because they have nothing else but whatever fun they're going to try and have. So to them, YOLO and going out and risking their lives and everybody else's lives, like, that's worth dying for. It's assisted suicide. And as much as I hate to have to say this, good morning, Latasha, we're going to have to let them die. Because we can't stop them. If I can't tell you that I care about you as an American, and I care about our neighborhoods and our communities and our healthcare system that wasn't overburdened the first go round, but it can get overburdened now. Have you guys seen the pictures from the Lake of the Ozarks? This just a mass gathering of people. There were bars and restaurants either in Houston or in Dallas where bar owners had to literally stop letting people in. Zero social distancing. Nobody's wearing any masks. And people know what the risks are. I would imagine that 9 out of 10 people, 9 out of 10 adults, certainly 9 out of 10 people over the age of 30 know what the coronavirus is, know how it's spread. Believe it or not, there are some people that don't know what it is, or it doesn't make any sense to them because they don't pay attention. But I would say the vast majority, overwhelming majority of people know what it is. They know how it's spread. They're familiar with people, or they know people that have gotten sick. Maybe some have recovered, maybe some have not. So people know what it is. And if they're going to recklessly disregard all that, but these are also the same people that if you go to the doctor and the doctor says, okay, well, we're going to have to put you on medication and we're going to need you to change your diet a little bit. Here's your suggestions for what you need to eat, and you got to get regular exercise. Those are the same people that say, well, I'm going to die anyway. If I'm going to die eating a ribeye steak. You can't do anything with those people. Now, those of us who value life, those of us who believe that the best is yet to come and we want to see as many days on this earth as possible, we have to protect ourselves from them. That's the only thing that we can do, because information is not doing it, fact is not doing it, science is not doing it, this president is not helping. So we're going to have to protect ourselves from them. And it's unfair for us, isn't it, that we are now at additional risk from those people that just don't care about social distancing and safety. They don't care. So we got to protect ourselves from them. But I assure you, my good people, the rewards will come to those who exercise caution right now. If I got to miss a summer, okay, does it suck? It does. But I bet you I'll make up for it next summer. But the thing is, we have to get until next summer, you see. Some people are not going to make, they had their fun this summer. I'm going to the party with, you know, all it takes is, so the aerosol of the coronavirus, think sweat. Think droplets of sweat where you're at a beach or somewhere. It was hot yesterday. It was 80-something degrees in Milwaukee. I don't know. It was probably hotter in other places. But just sweat. And you wipe your sweat, because people wipe sweat subconsciously. And then you touch something. You touch a glass or a cup at one of those tiki bars, those outdoor bars they have at the beach, then that server touches that same cup, that same glass that you were drinking out of, then the server wipes sweat and that sweat drips into that eyeball, that's it. Congratulations. You just potentially won yourself a trip to the ICU and a ventilator is going to be charged to your insurance. Just the aerosol of sweat. And when you look at all those people, shirtless, bikinis, swimsuits, sweating profusely, body to body, I think you know what's going to happen after that. And my question is it going to be worth it? And I hate that not listening to facts results in such drastic consequences, but you know what they say about a hard head. Anyways, another story, and I think it's a very teachable moment, if I'm going to call it that, because as black people in this country, we're always trying to take traumatic incidences of racism, especially those that play out in public and those that play out on either police officers' body cams or with our cell phone cameras, and trying to explain to people this is a reality that we have to deal with. And so this morning I was watching the news and I saw just this one takes the cake. You know, we've seen a lot of incidences of white people in America calling the police on black folks that are, I don't know, at a barbecue, trying to barbecue at a park. Remember Barbecue Becky is a group of black folks just minding their own business, having a barbecue, because, you know, that's what people do when they enjoy their summer times. But when black people barbecue, it's some kind of way a felony, whatever. And so this incident of a man, African-American man, who was bird watching in a portion of Central Park called the Ramble, which is known for bird watching. You have to have your dog on a leash by New York City ordinance if you're going to be walking your dog in the Ramble. And what makes this video so ironic, and I posted it in the forum Facebook group, and also if you guys are posting comments, I can only see them in the forum Facebook group. So if you're watching this video on other places in Facebook, you have to go to the forum talk show group. Then join us and I'll be able to see your comments. So there's a sign posted in the background that all dogs must be leashed in the Ramble. And this woman, whose dog is not leashed, and if you see the video, because I posted the video, the story in the video in the forum Facebook group, she's yanking her dog. She's scared for literally no reason, because this African-American man is telling her to literally do what the sign says, because unleashed dogs and dogs in general scare away the birds, because the Ramble is a place in Central Park where people go to watch birds. Like, you can't get more law-abiding and legitimate than this. Put a leash on your dog. Let me also say this. It annoys me to no end. It's one of my, 78,000 pet peeves, and I have a lot of them. When people don't leash their dogs. I hate it. I hate it. Look, I know how some of you pet lovers are. My dog would never hurt anybody until your dog does. Put your dog on a leash. That's the same kind of just community-minded thinking that, oh, yes, I love my dog loves me, but I don't know how my dog is going to react in certain situations or to loud noises or to big groups of people that might also be sharing the same space with my dog. Let me put my dog on a leash just to be sure. Put your dog on a leash, because a lot of these situations that we see of these overt racial interactions, I can't relate to some of them because I wouldn't be in the same place as that person or that African American. I wouldn't be doing the same things. But not that I'd be a bird watcher, but I could see myself telling one of these rabid dog lovers to put their dog on a leash. Because when your dog runs away, you're going to ask me to come help you look for your dog. So put your dog on a leash. So this was one I could relate to. And this woman proceeds to call the police. To call 911 and say that this African-American man is threatening me. So let me stop right there for a second. Do you know what the ratio is in New York City of police to citizens? You ever wonder when you call the police, they don't come? It's because of Leashy Lisa here. Calling 911. You know, people are getting murdered and raped, and children are getting abducted. Domestic violence is spiking, and you have individuals, and I want to say that this is an exception and not the rule, that are calling 911 for situations that could have been averted by following the goddamn sign that says put your dog on a leash. But forget reading, forget having to follow any of the rules, and that's what white privilege allows white people to do. It allows them to break rules that they don't want to follow. It allows them to break laws that they don't want to follow, because for so long they were able to get away with it, because they also, let's say they were criminally charged for breaking a law or breaking a rule they didn't want to follow. They also got a jury of people that also probably wouldn't want to follow that law or that rule either. You see how that works? And when you tell people to follow a rule, because you know black people, we have no choice. We are told as children, not only should you behave when you're in public, you got to follow those little rules and those little laws. And one thing that I've always had an issue with is when black people say, and look, I know it's unfair. Nothing in life is fair. We got to hope we have more good days and bad days, but don't try to achieve some universal fairness, because what people do with universal fairness is they take advantage of it. So stop saying it's not fair when white people can do certain things and black people can't. First of all, we shouldn't want to do those things. And so as black children, it's ingrained in us that we have to follow the letter of the law. We have to follow the rules, because they will use us, or us, doing this minor infraction, to use their heavy hand against our bodies. And so it's so ingrained in us that if we see a sign in a park, and not everybody follows the rules, of course. There are some people who have a rebellious spirit. But again, what I said earlier, those who have a hard head makes a soft part of another part of their anatomy. And so we follow these rules so that we don't unnecessarily attract attention from law enforcement, because sometimes when you're black, and depending upon where you are and what the situation is, you don't even have to be doing anything illegal. It's a matter of interpretation. And so this man says to this woman, and he's not yelling and screaming. Sherwin would have been I would have had a little more bass in my voice as I'm telling somebody. Because if I see the sign that says put your dog on a leash, and then there's someone who is actively defying that, first of all, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show y'all. I'm going to take all sorts of pictures. I'm going to put it all over the forum Facebook group. I'm going to put it all over the Twitter. But I probably would not have been as calm as him. And so he tells this woman to put her dog on a leash in the shadow of the sign that says all dogs must be leashed. She proceeds to call 911. In the city of New York, there are 1,000 citizens for every 4 cops. I got to say that again. For every 1,000 people in New York City, there is 4.2 police officers. And this woman called 911 while I assure you an assault was taking place, or even a worse crime, and sometimes the cops can't come because people do stupid stuff like this. This is why sometimes we have an issue with the police. Well, I called you guys and they didn't show up because Leashy Lisa was afraid of a black man that told her to follow a rule, because sometimes white people don't have to follow the rules. But it's a problem for me when we as African Americans feel hamstrung by following the law and following the rules, and the example that we use is the example that we don't and shouldn't want to be. Well, white people get to take a 35-minute lunch break. How come I have to come back in 15 minutes? Probably because you value your job more than they value theirs. They can always go work for their uncle. You can't work for your uncle. Your uncle's in jail. Let me pull the story up here before I go too far off track. From KABC, a video has gone viral of a white woman in New York Central Park calling the police on a black man after he asked her to obey park rules and keep her dog on a leash. So telling a white person, not all white people, some white people are fantastic. Some white people put their dogs on leashes. Like you don't even have to have a sign. Some white people said, I'm going to put my dog on a leash. Not her. But even telling some white people to follow the rules is tantamount to having to call, not the police, not the non-emergency number. Call 911 like there is an active shooting in process. The encounter took place in a part of Central Park called the Ramble. The area is a wildlife habitat that is popular with bird watchers like Chris Cooper. I'm so happy that there are black people that are bird watching. I love that we love outdoorsy stuff. Dogs disturb the birds, which is why Cooper asked the woman to follow the rules, but she refused. Quote, she was actually standing right next to the sign that says dogs in the ramble have to be leashed at all times, Cooper said. The video shows the woman ask Cooper to stop recording. As she approaches him, Cooper asks her not to come closer. So let me say this. Record everything. I know it's a burden. I know. And most of the time, this kind of stuff isn't going to happen. But every now and again, because we have a country of, I don't know, depends on if you guys fill your census out or not, 350 million people. That is an astronomical number of people. You know what kind of stuff happens in a country of 350 million people? If you can think of something, anything, as outrageous and as far-fetched as you can possibly think of, it's happening right now somewhere in America. It is, good and bad, because there's a lot of people here. But every now and again, you get these incidents caught on camera. I urge you to record as much as you can because that's the only evidence that we're going to have to get justice if justice is required. You understand? The footage you give us is proof positive. And if you don't believe me, look at the Ahmaud Arbery case. We wouldn't know if there wasn't video evidence. So record as much as you can, as often as you can, but also don't live your life through the lens. I want you to go out, stay 6 feet away and wear a mask, but enjoy your life. But there are incidents, and maybe they never happen to you. Maybe they seem to happen to you all of the time because you're just cursed like that. But the video evidence that you provide allows us to see an objective view of what happened, because if we don't have video evidence of the incidents, of the exchange, of who pulled the gun out first or who was threatening who, we have to take somebody's word for it. And you know, if it's their word against ours, it's not going to go in our favor. In fact, I would say the invention or the combination of the digital video camera and a cell phone is the greatest civil rights tool since the March on Washington. It is an equalizer that even outpaces that of education, because they say education is a great equalizer. Oh no, if you got somebody on tape, and I don't even know why we still call it tape, because we don't tape things anymore. But if you got the video, that ends the discussion. Man, what happened? Sherwin, and he had 17 guns, and Sherwin actually had a tank. When he rode up and told me to get out of my car, he was in a tank. He had military jets that flew over, and it was the most frightening thing. Sherwin, can we see the video that you have? Oh, that appears to be Sherwin standing by himself on a park bench playing Angry Birds. Well, I was scared of him. We need the video evidence, so record stuff. Then she threatens to call the police and tell them, quote, there's an African-American man threatening my life. Quote, this must be Cooper. Cooper said, my thinking was I can sort of capitulate to the racial intimidation, or I can do what I'm doing and continue recording, Cooper said. He kept recording and captured the woman talking on the phone. And so if you watch the video, and I hope you have, because it's a real teachable moment. So her dog is not leashed. She doesn't put the dog on a leash. And she's choking her dog, because she's holding onto the dog's collar. The dog is obviously getting agitated. And the dog is yelping. And so that should be something she should be held accountable for as well. There's an African-American man. I'm in Central Park, she said in the video, as she struggles to control the dog. He is recording me and threatening myself and my dog. I'm being threatened by a man in the ramble. Please send the cops immediately. So if you record somebody and you're black and you record a white person breaking the law, not all white people, but these kind of white people, they feel threatened by having to follow a law that they personally deem unnecessary. That's white privilege. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to come back. I'm going to read some of your comments. And we're going to talk about these Memorial Day revelers that decided to put all of us at risk instead of following rules, which we know some people don't like to do. You're listening to The Forum Live. I'm your host, Sherwin Hughes, and I'll be right back.
not start with Donald Trump. He is a symptom, not the cause. He's just capitalizing on resentments that politicians have been fanning for years. Over the past few decades, the politics of division and resentment and paranoia has unfortunately found a home in the Republican Party. They're undermining our alliances, cozying up to Russia. What happened to the Republican Party? Republicans who know better in Congress, and they're there, they're quoted saying, yeah, we know this is kind of crazy, are still bending over backwards to shield this behavior from scrutiny or accountability or consequence. And by the way, the claim that everything will turn out okay because there are people inside the White House who secretly aren't following the president's orders, that is not a check. I'm being serious here. That's not how our democracy is supposed to work. These people aren't elected. They're not accountable. It should not be Democratic or Republican. It should not be a partisan issue to say that we do not pressure the Attorney General or the FBI to use the criminal justice system as a cudgel to punish our political opponents. And we're sure as heck supposed to stand up clearly and unequivocally to Nazi sympathizers. How hard can that be, saying that Nazis are bad? Fortunately, I am hopeful. Look at this crop of Democratic candidates running for Congress and running for governor, running for the state legislature, running for district attorney, running for school board. It is a movement of citizens who happen to be younger and more diverse and more female than ever before, and that's really useful. In the end, the threat to our democracy doesn't just come from Donald Trump or the current batch of Republicans in Congress or the Koch brothers and their lobbyists or too much compromise from Democrats or Russian hacking. The biggest threat to our democracy is indifference. The biggest threat to our democracy is cynicism. Do not complain. Don't hashtag. Don't get anxious. Don't retreat. Don't binge on whatever it is you're binging on. Don't lose yourself in ironic detachment. Don't put your head in the sand. Don't boo. Vote. Vote. I believe in you. I believe you will help lead us in the right direction, and I will be right there with you every step of the way. Thank you, Illinois. God bless you. God bless this country we love. Thank you.
Leaders for a Better Community has one mission: to improve the quality of our lives. We believe that every child deserves a quality education, healthcare should be affordable, every job should pay a living wage, and our neighborhood should be safe and secure. Your input on these issues is very important to us, and we'd love to hear from you. To share your thoughts, visit us at lbcmke.org. Join our fight for a better quality of life. That's lbcmke.org, paid for by Leaders for a Better Community.
Welcome back. So I'm going to read a few of your comments, and we're going to get on to some interesting stories. And also, I have an idea, and I'm going to need you guys to be honest, because I don't think there's a person more honest than someone who is typing in the comment box on Facebook or on social media. And so I came up with an idea, and sometimes my ideas need to get vetted because I've been in the house for a really long time. And what sounds like a good idea to Sherwin, terrible idea. But I need you guys to help me with this idea, okay? So don't let me forget to ask you guys about this idea. I think it's a good idea. If you guys say it's a bad idea, I'm still going to think it's a good idea, but I won't actually do it. What do we got here for comments? Bobby Pantuso. Good morning, Bobby. He says, I do, to something I may have said earlier, but I guess, Bobby, if you want to get married, why not? Benita, good morning. Bobby also says, stupid is as stupid does it. Man, that Forrest Gump quote just should go down in history. Round two is coming, says Gene. Central Park Karen. I like Leashy Lisa. Do you guys remember the 80s, 90s? I don't know why I'm so nostalgic these days. Again, a lot of time to think. Lisa Lisa and Cult Jam. Remember them? So this is Leashy Lisa. That flew over your head, I'm sure. She got suspended from her job. She did. She was, she's still employed. Like a vice president of Franklin Templeton Investments. Oh, this woman makes six figures. She's a muckety muck at Franklin Templeton. But I'm glad that they responded. You know how many employers just say we're going to investigate or we're reviewing the incident whenever they have an employee that is caught in an overtly racist act against an innocent African American minding their own business and following the letter of the law. A lot of these employers, some of them say nothing. Some of them say, we take these matters very seriously. We're going to do something. We're going to shuffle a bunch of papers around and blah, 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 blah. No, Franklin Templeton responded. But also, there's another phenomenon with that. And are you guys familiar with Black Twitter? If you're not, just use the hashtag Black Twitter and just absorb. It's the vanguard of the movement of fairness and equality, especially for younger African Americans. It is just it's lightning fast. So whenever these incidents take place, and living in Wisconsin, we don't get the things that may happen in other places until it makes national news. But if you go to Black Twitter, it's like having eyes everywhere. All of the incidents that are caught on tape. It also can be very overwhelming. But instead of having to wait until these stories rise to national attention, Black Twitter is on it. They post these videos and these incidents in real time. So if you don't go on Twitter, I would suggest everybody have a Twitter just so you can see what is happening in real time in your world. And so Black Twitter is doing its thing. And a lot of times, it is these employers and these large corporations that fear the backlash from Black Twitter. So African Americans are not just a crucial part of this democracy to stop tyranny and dictatorship during a pandemic. Our spending power is equally as powerful as our vote. And there are a lot of companies and corporations that know the demographic they used to market to and sell to is quickly being replaced by younger people of color. African Americans specifically, because we are known to spend. We are consumers. One of the ways in which we try to come, and rise to a level of superiority, if not equality, is by spending, is by buying things. So if you can't have all of the fairness and justice, at least you can buy stuff to make it look like you're one of the Joneses, you see. And there's something very cultural about African Americans and our spending habits. I disagree with a lot of stuff that we buy, but thus is the culture and people's right to liberty, right? It's your money, do whatever you want with it. But a lot of business owners in this country, especially those that you see, are quick to respond to racial incidences involving their employees. First of all, they don't want Black Twitter to attack them, because what Black Twitter does is, oh, here is the girl who was wearing blackface. Here is her home address. Here is where she works. Here is her latest Facebook post. Black Twitter is able to expose every part of someone's social media footprint immediately. And there are some employers that don't want African Americans to think that this company, this corporation that needs our money is siding with one of their racist employees. And so Franklin Templeton is really interesting because it's an investment firm. You know, a lot of the demographics in the United States are pointing in a particular direction. White populations are older. Not only are they older, they are past, on average, whites are past their childbearing years. So even the white populations that exist in this country, they're not having any more kids. But African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians, who are dramatically, sometimes a decade or more on average younger, are still in child producing years, which means that as time goes on, white people are having less children, people of color are having more. Multiply that times 10 or 20 years, you're going to have a totally different United States. And actually, you kind of see some of that United States right now. And so places like Franklin Templeton know that they have to take a stand against this kind of racism of one of their employees, or African Americans, as they approach retirement age, will never, ever, ever invest their money with Franklin Templeton. Oh, they're smart. They know better. Some companies are much better than others. Like, we don't want to upset African Americans. They're our new market. Smart thinking. Now, is she going to get fired? I don't know. Usually someone who's a vice president of a firm like that has an awful lot of protection, but is Franklin Templeton going to look at the short game or the long haul? Because what can happen is this, and I want people to take notes. When there is a company that sides with us, that sees the world as we do, even if it's one incident at a time, that company, just like people that side with us, become endearing to us. Like, we can identify our allies by the actions they take. There are a lot of our white allies and friends that will see an article on social media and they'll just, I hate white people like this and I'm going to be an ally to black people, but they still let their family and friends use the word nigger. I would rather you post less and say more to people in your circle. That is how we can just achieve some level of universal fairness when it comes to the idea of race. Because posting on social media is easy and it's tired a lot of the times because it's so easy to do. I mean, when you think about it, you don't really have to do anything to counteract stereotypes in real life because that takes too much, real life talking and actual thinking. But you can post something or give your commentary on a racial incident and you're just using your thumbs. You're not even using your whole hand to respond. Oh, that's racist. I'm going to post something to let the black people know that I'm one of them. Judy Brown says, those people that were at Lake Geneva, Ozarks, etc., are part of the 10% that are doing the wrong thing. Good Morning America interviewed someone that wrote a book about people surviving natural tragedy. It's called the 10-80-10 rule. 10% take the lead to do the right thing. 80% wait for leadership to tell them what to do. 10% do the wrong thing. I totally buy that. I buy those numbers. 911, a good use of resources. Yeah, only call 911 when you see a crime in progress or when it's a dire emergency situation. Because we already have a pretty low ratio of police to citizens. In Milwaukee, I think it's pretty decent. I think we're about 300 Milwaukeeans to every one police officer. Still, and I guess you have to look at, do you want to live in a police state where there's one cop for every person? That might be a little bit too much because then they become hammers and everything looks like a nail. But you need to have a ratio that allows police to respond to the most serious incidents immediately. The other thing with that is what's serious to me or to you may not be serious at all. We could be in a heightened state of anxiety or intoxicated where everything is blown out of proportion, right? And what looks like something that's very, very dangerous and very serious really isn't. And then people call the police on situations that could have been remedied by, I don't know, putting the Budweiser down. Budweiser plays a role in, no, I don't have the data, I don't know, 27 to 32% of crimes. 98% of domestic violence. Budweiser should be held accountable. Marcy May says, I like that he was calm. It gave him the advantage. The minute he would have lost it is when it would become a whole different outcome. And what troubles me is that, because you guys can think of the names and you guys have seen a lot of the recordings and know the incidents and have seen the protests. Some of them have blocked you when you're on the freeway trying to get home because that was a tool of the protesters as well, to get people to be inconvenienced while they were commuting. Like whole communities are inconvenienced by the interpretation of race. This woman had a natural instinct. I'm going to call the cops so they can kill him. And she gave a lukewarm apology, an apology because she got caught. I think someone posted something along those lines, and she only apologized and became contrite because she was recorded. That's when I go back to my earlier statement, record everything as much as you can, but don't live your life through the lens, but capture these incidents if you're able. She was thinking, these cops are going to come and kill him, and I won't have to do anything more than just push a few buttons on my cell phone. If I tap on the screen of my cell phone in a certain order, the police will show up. Now, I don't want to over dramatize this, but if I'm in a park, and I told you earlier that if I see someone who is walking their dog without a leash, I'm going to say something to them because that's reckless. It is. And so this is one that I related to probably a lot more than some of the others. I would not have been calm when this woman, who's standing by the sign that says your dog must be leashed. And she is threatening to call the police on me because I immediately know what she is trying to do by threatening to call the police and actually calling them, not the police, but 911. That is her attempting to get someone to assassinate me because I'm telling her to follow a rule that as an African American man, I am bound to follow the rules because if I break the rules, I am in some cases going to get killed. And so I would have been considerably more defiant, which would not have worked out in my favor. And I want people to just really appreciate the kind of maturity and will it takes to be calm in the face of someone who was calling a hit squad. Because she wasn't thinking the cops were going to come and break it up and talk to both sides. She was thinking they were going to come and snuff him out. Because she knows as well as I do, sometimes when white people call the police on black people, that is precisely what they do. And so why this one was so poignant for me is that, let's say the cops did come. And thank God 911 dispatchers are now trained to deal with people's bullshit calls. Ma'am, this is not an emergency. But he told me to do something that a sign says. He told me to follow a municipal ordinance. Come murder him. Yeah, I'm being extreme, but sometimes these situations require that. You know what I would have said to the cops if they'd have showed up? Because they would have talked to me first, right? And no, I shouldn't interject myself in this. I should try and keep this objective, but this one was very personal for me. Cops would have showed, sir, can we talk to you for a second? Fuck you. That's what I would have said to the cops. And you know what? You know what can happen after that? Now I'm on the ground. If the police would have come and tried to cuff this man, do you understand why he would be in the right to want to resist? Because he literally did nothing wrong. The only weapon he had was some binoculars to watch birds. But I just want you to understand how these situations can escalate. If I'm not doing anything wrong and someone calls the police on me with the intent the police are going to murder me, and then the cops come, because I'm guilty, you see, because the person called the cops on me, and police have to do their job, they have to investigate, but I'm not willing to comply because I never did anything wrong in the first place. And also, imagine if there was no video of that situation. We wouldn't even be talking about the story, and who knows what the result could have been. I got to move on because I'm going to get way too in my head about that story. Let's talk about some of your Memorial Day revelers. While some are just happy to get a bit of fresh air after being cooped up for months, others flouted social distancing rules put in place in an effort to stop the spread of the coronavirus. People all over the country attempted to kick off Memorial Day weekend as beaches, parks, and bars began to reopen while following social distance guidelines with varying degrees of success. After images emerged of a jam-packed pool party in the Lake of the Ozarks in Missouri, local health officials issued a travel advisory and called on revelers to self-quarantine. Quote, "This reckless behavior endangers countless other people and risks setting us back substantially from the progress we have made slowing the spread of COVID-19, Dr. Sam Page, the county executive, said in a statement. The World Health Organization warned of a second peak of infections in countries where COVID-19 is actually declining. If measures put in place to halt the outbreak are let up too quickly, the disease can jump up at any time, World Health Organization Emergencies head Dr. Mike Ryan said on Monday. We may get a second peak in this wave. So for those that want to compare this to the flu, the flu, let's say you get it early in the season. You get it in October. Just because you get the flu in October doesn't mean that members of your family and your coworkers are not going to get the flu at some point later on in the season. The coronavirus and the syndrome that it leads to, that it can have deadly consequences, not for everybody, but for some, is not cancer, right? Like you don't beat COVID-19. Like, oh wow, we were quarantined and I never got sick. We beat coronavirus. You don't beat it. And that's probably a result of maybe people not thoroughly or properly digesting the information. I think they believe that this quarantine was a fixed set of dates in which you had to suffer at home. And then once it's lifted, everything goes back to normal because the coronavirus, as the president said, and this is why his words, as ridiculous as they may be, they matter, he said it's going to disappear like a miracle. While I know that's not true, there are some people that rely so heavily on him, the leader of the free world, and his word, because if Donald Trump says it, it must be true. But that's not the case. And if I have to explain that to somebody, then we probably don't have much else in common. But it's not something that you just beat where it's over. It's going to be with us. And because there is a number of folk that will never adhere to rules. We just saw Leashy Lisa not adhere to a rule as she's standing under the rule. No matter what. And so it's not something that you beat. We want to mitigate it because some people are going to get very, very sick. And I think the focus has been on the wrong things. The death rate is low. And we don't even have all the details of the specific circumstances of why people are dying and what their other pre-existing conditions are. Because you can't tell the public about somebody else's pre-existing conditions and their health situation because they're protected under federal law. If you tell somebody, if a doctor releases someone's medical records, like, oh, this person died from complications from coronavirus, but they had diabetes and high blood pressure and they had heart disease, you can't release somebody's medical information like that. You get sued and you'll lose. So we don't know. And then there's been some mistakes. Of course, there's mistakes along the way of people who were diagnosed with having the coronavirus but died of cancer are now, in some places, Colorado might be the state, please don't quote me if that's wrong, but they're calling that and counting other deaths as coronavirus related, even if it wasn't, right? So if you didn't get COVID-19, you just had the virus, and maybe you were an asymptomatic carrier of the virus, but you died from something else, because you were diagnosed with having the coronavirus, they're saying, oh, that's the cause of death, and maybe that's inflating the numbers. Bottom line is, we have done a terrible job of providing adequate information to individuals in this country. Arande says, unfortunately, sometimes video is not enough. You are right, sir. Just because you have video of someone being a horrible person doesn't mean that they'll have consequences. Tammy Reed says, real talk. She may face more consequences for what she did to the dog compared to filing false allegations against a black man. Hey, Michael Vick haters. Hey, look, I know. Michael Vick, terrible. Let me say. Awful. He went to prison. Oh, but they let him have it. Michael Vick was set to announce. You guys remember this? There's a petition that got hundreds of thousands of signatures because Michael Vick was going to announce a Super Bowl. Do you know what Michael Vick has done to combat animal abuse since he's been released from prison? He goes on talks. He's started foundations. He has been doing community service long after his community service requirements expire. But people have not forgiven him. If you watch the video of Leashy Lisa and how her dog is just being choked, animal rights activists are groups you just don't want to mess with. There's a number of protected classes in this nation that you don't want to mess with. I'm not that I'm going to call animal rights activists a protected class, but they're fierce. Don't mess with the gays either. Don't do it. Don't even make an off-color comment about the gays. I warned you. Don't boo, vote, says Tammy Reed. Yeah, that was the original Barack Obama clip that I played earlier that I might have had some technical difficulties. There's a lot of stuff going on. You guys can't see what I can see. There's a lot of things. And if I don't push the right button, sometimes you don't hear the clips. AJ Liggins says, Black Twitter is glorious. It is, Tammy Reed. AJ Liggins, her dog is giving a statement to the police. I tried to tell her I can't breathe, but she kept choking me. Oh, I'm not going to read the rest of that. Well, everybody else can read it. Michael Brox, Black Twitter. I'll have to check it out. Yes, you got to check out Black Twitter. Some of it is, it's not all hard fact in news. Some of it is garbage, but you can filter through garbage. Just like social media in general, some of it is mindless because people are bored and at home and hashtag everything. Julie Bauman says, and it's the increasing volume of videos like these that finally started convincing many white Americans that this kind of stuff really is happening every day. Justin says, the white people just hearing about Black Twitter, please remember that it's not for you. No matter how tempting it is to interject or even show support and agree, don't. So, Justin, I find that comment interesting. But I get it. Let me tell you how I get it. If a man is accused of sexual harassment, there's a difference between sexual harassment and sexual assault. The difference is dramatic, actually. Even though it may be a matter of interpretation for some, there is a difference in the definition between sexual harassment and sexual assault. If a man is accused of sexual harassment, really, just barely above the threshold, it could be a compliment that was off color or a poor choice of words, and if a woman feels threatened by that, because we don't know what triggers people have. There used to be a time where you could compliment someone, and depending upon the words you chose, the compliment was accepted graciously, or someone grimaced at you, and that's that. But now there's a different threshold of what a compliment is and what it isn't, and the language you use has got to be very carefully sorted out. And there have been times in which there's an incident, okay, maybe it's high profile, maybe it isn't, where there are a man who's accused of sexual harassment, not assault, that's different. And as the comments begin to mount, people begin to polarize and they interject other things into that conversation that originally started about a man who was accused of sexual harassment. And sometimes I want to say something so bad, but I don't, because I respect the fact that I'm a man and I don't have to deal with sexual harassment or sexual assault in the same ways that women have to. And so as much as I want to say, oh, you women are blowing this out of proportion, I know better. Because if there's an incident of racial harassment and a bunch of white people chime in and say, Sherwin, you're just thin-skinned. You don't know what you're talking about. I take a tremendous amount of offense to that. So I would say be judicious with your sentiments and then your thumbs when you respond. Eileen says she was not calling because she did not like being called out for not doing what she knew was the right thing. And that call, she must have been a drama major at Smith. Yeah. You say that, and then you have the incident from Minneapolis, cuffed with a knee still in your neck. Damn shame. Darnell DJ Infotech Bennett II. The privileged mindset won't self-quarantine after this past weekend. Constitutional rights will be the excuse. The virus will not disappear like magic unless they know something that we don't. Monica Walsh says what Vic did to his dogs was sadistic. I agree. He tortured the hell out of his dogs. I don't know how you rehab that kind of personality trait out of a person. Well, and here's the thing. And so we got to decide on whether people are able to serve their debt to us in a criminal justice system that we pretty much vote for. And if you can't forgive somebody, look, there's some really horrible things that people do. But then there are people who go above and beyond to prove that rehabilitation actually works. Because if we have lost faith in a criminal justice system, then we're really screwed. But to hold someone accountable, and it's amazing because we always want forgiveness for stuff that we did. We say, well, that was a long time ago. I'm not like that anymore. And when we screw up, we always want somebody to forgive us. Always, always, always. But if we can point the finger at somebody else's faults, because when you point the finger at somebody else, we believe it absolves us from any responsibility of terrible stuff that we've done, because we've all done terrible stuff. And you become a better person when you realize that you have done terrible stuff. Sometimes it's not the other person that ruined the relationship. Sometimes it's us, you see. Gotta take responsibility. Now, you can do things like, if someone is accused of a horrible crime and they're found guilty and they go to jail, you can never, buy their products ever again. But at some point, you have to allow somebody to resume their life, because that is when people become more dangerous. If somebody commits a crime, and maybe it's a crime of circumstance, or they were young and they were immature, are you going to let this 17-year-old kid not be able to get a job because they committed whatever is considered a felony or a minor offense when they're a kid? Because people become more dangerous then. And I'm not telling anybody what to do, but we've got to figure out, because if we hold everyone accountable for every single mistake that they've done, some of y'all would be divorced. I had other things that I wanted to say today. Oh yeah, here's my idea. You guys got to tell me if I'm crazy or not. So if you go to myvote.wi.gov and you put in someone's name and their date of birth, it can give you their voting patterns. It won't tell you who they voted for, but it will tell you if they're registered to vote, and it will tell you all of the elections in which they participated in. Okay? What if, because there's a number of people that are trying to all of a sudden be very defiant and not vote in November. And you know how I feel about that. I think you should vote. What if we made public, and all this information is public anyway, but what if we published, because we know the people that are registered to vote, because it's public record. What if we published the names of people who are registered to vote alphabetically in the city of Milwaukee? You can't do it nationwide because it's too many names. What if we published the names of people that are registered to vote? And then we have the election on November 3rd and Donald Trump wins. Very distinct possibility he wins. And then what if we did another round of publishing of names? And we start with the city of Milwaukee because the data is obtainable. Yeah, it's a lot of information, but something computers make it easy. I don't know. And what if we publish the names of people that did not vote? That are registered to vote, okay? That voted in previous elections. Or maybe not, right? Just maybe people who are registered to vote. But didn't vote in November. What if we publish those names? Now, the thing that I worry about, because I know that it was a tactic in the Jim Crow South that if African Americans registered to vote, their names were published. Their employers would fire them, the bank would foreclose on their homes, and the Klan would firebomb their houses. That is not my intent here. But for those who want to be defiant and think that they can get away with it, because now we have plenty of time, and I don't know if Joe Biden is the one to make the case. We have to make the case in our own spheres of influence. We got to convince our own friends and our own family that they need to cast their vote. Now, I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, because you can still vote for Mickey Mouse. I just want you to get out there. And hopefully the candidates and the campaigns and our friends and our family having influence on us when we do go vote, if we feel compelled to do so. Because if we don't vote, our name is going to be made public. Then maybe you decide to do the right thing at the very last minute and cast your vote so that, I don't know, little black girls are not having coat hanger abortions, because that's what's going to happen. And if I have to use that kind of language, I'm not afraid of that. There's no censorship here, and I've been very judicious with my cuss words. I could go full Richard Pryor, but I won't do that yet. Because you know that we're not going to let our little black girls come home pregnant, because mama's going to kill me if I come home with this baby. And she will have a coat hanger abortion. But see, people aren't seeing it that way. They're saying Joe Biden is a racist. Okay, well, you need to weigh that. You need to weigh what's going to happen if they get to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg with a Trump-loving 32-year-old who sits on the Supreme Court for the next 60 years. So is my idea crazy? I'm going to end the broadcast, and then we'll have the discussion in the Forum Talk Show Facebook group. Thank you guys all so much for listening. I appreciate each and every one of you. And just know that we do this every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. until 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. You've been listening to the Forum Live, and I'm your host, Sherwin Hughes.